Okay, good. I'm Lindsay Birch with the Edison Awards. And just a quick little plug, I'm sure you all know already, but nominations have been extended until December 1st. So you still have time to submit your application if you have a new product or service. In the past 2 years, I've personally seen over $21 million invested into our finalist products via different connections they made at the event, and sometimes through some of these incubator programs. So it is a great opportunity. The event itself was covered by over 490 media outlets, reaching over 270 million people globally. So if you're looking for capital, if you're looking for exposure, nominating your new product or service for an Edison Award can definitely help you get there. Today, I'm honored to have the opportunity to introduce you to two amazing individuals, each leading really incredible programs. We invite you to ask questions and to engage with Danielle and Ryan over the next 45 minutes. This is your session. So these are the experts. Don't be afraid to ask questions. So the way we're going to ask that you do ask those questions is via the chat, or if it's something you'd like to say, you can raise your hand. And when one of them call on you, go ahead and ask your question. And to do that, you'll have to unmute yourself, of course. So if you guys are all ready, I'm going to turn it over to Danielle and she can go ahead and get started.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you, Lindsay. We've been a big supporter of the Edison Awards. I know so has Ryan. So thank you for having us today, and we're just excited to have everyone join us on what I like to call Friday Eve. So thank you for spending a little bit of extra time with Ryan and I. First, I'll introduce myself. For those that don't know me, I'm Danielle Musso. I'm the manager of an organization called 35 Mules Innovation Hub, which is part of Florida Power and Light, which is the largest utility company in Florida. And we're a part of NextEra Energy, which is the world's largest renewable energy company from power from the wind and the sun. And I'll kick it over to Ryan, and then I'll get us started with our session.
Morning, Danielle. Thank you, Lindsay.
Morning.
Yeah. Yeah, also great to be part and have a long-term partnership with Edison Awards. It's really been helpful for Black & Veatch and our IgniteX program, and definitely a mutually beneficial relationship. So great to join everybody this morning. Yeah, so I'm Ryan Pletka. I work at Black & Veatch. We're one of the larger engineering and construction companies in the world, and we build a lot of the critical infrastructure that powers our lives, including electricity systems, energy in general, communications, water treatment plants. And I'm privileged to be part of the company's enterprise innovation team. We're really thinking about what the next generation infrastructure looks like. So a lot of that has to do with climate and sustainability, artificial intelligence, and things like that. So great to join everybody this morning.
All right. Well, I'm going to be kind of captaining it's going to be more of a conversation. So we don't have slides. We're not going to bore you with data points. If you want information about our programs after, reach out to Ryan and I will be happy to share. I'll kind of go over a little bit some of the topics we'll be covering, and then it's going to be a conversation where I'm going to ask Ryan questions. I'm going to answer some of my own questions, and then we will open it up once we're done. We'll give you the signal, and we'll leave some time for questions at the end. So we're going to cover, what's the nature of both of our programs? Why did our companies choose to launch these incubator innovation programs? What are our programs' basics? What's the differences? What are some of the similarities, length of time? How have our programs changed over the years and why? And really what's coming up next for our program. And with that, Ryan, I'd love to start off with you and have you share a little about all the different programs that Black & Veatch has to offer.
Thanks, Daniel. Yeah, so as I said, I'm part of our corporate innovation team. And the vision for Black & Veatch, we recently updated this, is to be the leader in sustainable infrastructure. And our innovations team role is really to help enable that leadership position. And that means doing a lot of things differently than what we've done them before. And so our innovation program is really dual-breasted. We have a lot of internal programs that support internal entrepreneurs at the company. And then we also know that there's amazing, great ideas outside the company. And so we launched our IgniteX Accelerator program back in 2019, really to expand the view of innovation and to engage with startups, engage with emerging technologies, and see how we can help them and how they can help us. And that was the origin for the idea. We're now in our fourth year. We just actually wrapped up our this last year's program, the 2023 program, last week at a really successful demo day. And I'll pop in a couple links in the chat. So that's kind of our background. And how did you guys get started, Daniel?
Well, we got started. We're actually part of Florida Power and Light's Office of Economic Development. I will give a shout out to my friend Lucianne Pierce, who's also in economic development and listening in. So really, we are not the corporate venture arm of Next Era Energy or FPL. We have that as a company, so we don't take equity. We are really trying to grow and scale startups from Florida right here in Juno Beach. The companies don't have to be in energy. They don't have to necessarily be from Florida or from Palm Beach County. So we recruit companies all over the world to try to grow the next jobs in the tech industry that can help Florida be the best state for innovation. So again, our program, which I can get into a little bit more later, really is focused on commercial introductions. We have a little bit of a longer program, which I'll get into in a little bit. We really focused on how do we grow and scale these companies with the great state and all the resources that Florida has. So we know Florida is a great state for business. So we're trying to prove that out. So we kind of consider ourselves early stage economic development. And we also started because, our leaders back in 2020 had the vision that, if we don't disrupt ourselves, we are going to be disrupted. I think there's a history of that in the world, and certainly utility industries aren't always known to be the most innovative. So we thought, what better way to, even though we're not taking equity in these companies, to be exposed to the innovation that can help our customers and help our employees really think and grow more like startups. So I do have a good portion of my role is, engaging our subject matter experts with our startups and kind of having a two-way conversation there, mentoring. And with that, Ryan, do you want to go into a little bit about each of your programs? Because I know on 35 Mules, we have one specific program with maybe a few different goals, but you actually have multiple programs with specific goals, which I think is very interesting and very different than our program.
Yeah, as I mentioned, we have multiple innovation programs. They're generally divided between the internal programs and external programs. And I won't talk too much about the internal programs, but we've kind of developed both of them in learning from the experiences of the others. So we have an incubator inside the company where professionals with ideas, generally they start at that idea stage, and we quickly pivot them to sort of like, okay, what's the problem you're solving? And they take it from that initial step all the way through, hopefully, commercialization and scaling inside the company. And then we might scale or spin out some of those concepts as well. So the startup program, IgniteX, is different. And one of the things that's actually a great learning is, startups give us a head start on some of these problems, right? So we generally, so it's just an overview of the program. I think I mentioned we're in our 4th year. We choose themes every year. The first year was clean tech. Then 2020, we did a program around COVID solutions. And I see one of our alumni and Edison Award winners, John Carreri from Energy Cloud on the team. Energy Cloud develops air disinfection product for HVAC systems. So we did a year on COVID, and then we came more back to our roots around climate tech the last couple of years. And we're also preparing for a program next year, likely to be around a similar thematic area. So we put out a call for companies who have novel climate technologies, and try to make our application process as simple as we can. And we're really looking for what the best fits between our companies. And the way that I think about it is like, that startup needs something and we have it, and we need something and they have it, right? So we're really looking for a strong strategic fit. With our engineering and construction heritage, it might be we might be the first time, founders with more of a science or business background need to understand the practicalities of how they're going to install this thing or scale it or make it bigger. So we look for those fits. We select the companies. This year we selected 7. And then we do a 12-week program where we define something at the very start we can work on together. If you check out the showcase link, you're going to hear all about how we worked with startups on things like, what's the capital cost estimate for a demonstration facility? Who are the target markets and how do we reach them? Can we do a pilot test of a very interesting new emerging AI technology on one of our projects? So we look for something really tangible we can do where we both can really prove that value exists in the partnership. And that's what we talk about in the showcase. We do sometimes make investments in the companies, but it's really looking more for that partnership fit through the program. So that's kind of overview of the program and what we look for. How about you guys, Daniel?
Well, I just wanted to ask a follow-up question, and I happen to know the answer, but are your programs virtual or in person?
Yeah, we've done all of them. The COVID one was totally virtual. We've done something a little bit different every year. So the first year was more of an in-person, but even that was, I think we met like every other week for a couple days over that 12-week period. So, half dozen in-person touch points. Then we did totally virtual. And this year, what we did was 3 touch points, kickoff. Then we went and visited the startups out in the wild at their site, or maybe a demonstration facility or something like that. And then we all came back together last week for the showcase too. So mostly virtual. And we do what a lot of the actual interaction is with our project teams and their teams working together on the thing that we define we want to do.
I think that's awesome. And I think we have some synergy. So fun fact to throw in, and I haven't talked about my program yet, but we've had a company be in Ryan's program, Black and Veatch's program, and also be in 35 Mules cohort as a cohort 2 company. But the reason I asked virtual is we are an in-person, 35 Mules is an in-person 15-month program that's focused on entrepreneurial coaching, executive coaching, and we really focus on the engagement with NextEra Energy subject matter experts as a Fortune 200 company. And you might say, well, you're an energy company, but we really view ourselves as a Fortune 200 company. And what that means is if someone needs help with, business development or sales, tax, accounting, legal, supply chain, we have folks and experts in those areas that are willing to give their time to support these companies. We have a formal mentoring program where we'll assign and match an internal mentor to each of our companies. We also provide produced marketing videos. So we kind of have a mix of paid and sort of, employee-led programming, but it is a combination program with that in mind. And while we do not have themes or projects, we are defining sort of what they hope to accomplish in that 15 months. But we think the special things about our program is, while we do offer non-dilutive or no equity funding, we offer $100,000 to every startup that makes it into our program. Because we are an in-person program, oftentimes if someone is pre-revenue or even post, they may use that to travel in to our incubator space. I have 3,000 square feet of pretty awesome space in our corporate office, and shameless plug to go on 35mules.com. We have a digital twin of our space now that one of our previous startups that had nothing to do with energy called Digital Twin Marine actually did for us. But one of the interesting things that's, I think, a little different than Ryan's is ours doesn't necessarily have to have a strategic fit. We'll certainly look for it. And a great example of that is Digital Twin Marine, as an example, is a company that did digital twins of large marine ships. And one of the things we're exploring with them is, could they do digital twins of utility assets? There's a lot of safety things and similarities between the maritime industry and those large ships and some of our assets. So, we found that for us being broader, certainly we skew more energy adjacent, climate tech related. But one of our, to get into our program, we say, while we do support small businesses, unless you want to be the biggest and baddest grocery store across over the world, we're not going to help you grow your single grocery store, which we do think is very, very important to the local economy of Florida. It's just not, we can't accomplish everything with our program. So our goal is to really grow the future of jobs and the grow business at the earliest stage, so we don't have to recruit them back in a traditional economic development sense. So those are just some of the differences there with our programs.
Yeah, that's it's interesting how they're similar but different. And I think we've evolved our program over the years, and the COVID year in particular, we really did things differently. We did not have this 12-week sort of work together program. We had 300. Basically, the call was like, this was like April. We were going to do another clean tech, climate sort of oriented program, and then we were like, well, how are we going to do this in person? And then we just said, like, the world needs help, and we don't know how we can help. But this, I think, is a great example of how you can use, the broader community to learn, right? So we basically designed that program around, there's emerging COVID solutions. People have technologies that, maybe we can help accelerate those and get those out into market faster. And we didn't know how, but, we asked people to let us know how. And so we got all kinds of interesting and amazing technologies, and still work with a number of those companies. But that wasn't really about strategic fit. That was more about, what could be most impactful. And this last year, I think we really tightened up the strategic fit element of our program. A good example is that we now look to so the innovation team sits a little bit off to the side in corporate, and our main business units are our main business units. So we now have, and this last year, we really enforced this, having the business units drive the selection of the themes, the topic areas, the criteria we use to select. And before we'll have a program in or take a startup into our program, we want a very strong champion from our business unit who agrees to, they want that program. They want to work with that stuff. They want that startup. They want to work with that startup, and they see a long-term fit. And they really anchor the success of our program is that tie back to the business units. It's like, what's a problem that we have that they can solve? And so I think that's been really a big change over the years in terms of getting the engagement right from our side so that we live up to sort of the commitment that we're making to the startups.
And Ryan, and I'll answer this after, what stage of company do you typically look for, or do you not have a specific stage?
We don't really have a specific stage, but I think what we found is that it's generally seed and Series A companies. I think that we're best at helping people transition from the science and sort of the early proof of concepts to scaling it up to quote unquote the real world. And so that seems to be around that stage. How about you guys?
And for us, it's been interesting. Each cohort's been a little different. I think you said you just had your showcase, and I just welcomed our third cohort 2 weeks ago. We just announced it in this past week. But each cohort's been a little different. So we're agnostic to stage and industry. And what that means is we've had some cohorts where we've taken folks that are very, very early stage, definitely pre-revenue, but those ideas have typically been in the more energy related space where we think we can really have some strategic fit. We don't say that as the reason why, but I'm guessing if you're earlier, we're going to have to really feel like we can make a big material difference. But I would say kind of similarly to you, we do feel like that seed to Series A is where we could likely make the material difference. We don't say that because we've had many, many exceptions. And we just had one of our earliest startups win a grant with the VA, and we help them with, grant writing and grant support. So again, I think, it's really about us looking at each business and looking and seeing if we think we can make a material difference, regardless of stage. Can we at NextEra Energy and FPL or our partners make a material difference in their business? And for our companies, we actually allow companies from all over the world. So we've had companies from Australia. I have a company from Canada and a Brazilian-based company in 35 Mules cohort. Ryan, do you focus just on US companies, or do you also take foreign companies?
We do take foreign companies. We're a global company, so have offices all around the world. However, because we do have those sort of touch points, and we provide travel grant to our companies. That's another thing we've learned about, is sort of like, hey, we can help offset the costs, as well as we provide, I think it's about $30,000 to $40,000 in in-kind services through the program. So when we define this project together, we don't charge for it. That's a benefit of the program, is like we'll do the engineering services or the cost estimating for free, essentially, as a grant. So yeah, we do work with companies all over the world. This last program happened to all be US based. We've had companies from Hong Kong, Canada, Europe. So it does tend to be more US focused, but it's not exclusive.
Yeah, and I guess one thing to point out for those that aren't as familiar with the different types of corporate innovation or corporate incubators, we at 35 Mules, Florida Power and Light, do not take equity, but we do have a separate corporate venture arm called NextEra Investments. They do get a first look at the companies we provide, but their thesis is very tight. They typically don't do hard tech. Anything that's, building a product or manufacturing, we absolutely will. So I'm involved with the Florida Venture Forum. What's great about, my program is I can take any startup in my program to an outside investor, if NextEra Energy Investments, if it doesn't fit their needs. So we're not beholden to our venture arm. We don't take equity. And I think, Ryan, you kind of have an equity option, but just kind of going through the different types, there's sort of 3 or 4 different types of corporate venture arms. So if you're considering applying for one or starting one yourself, just really look at the fine print of the details of each program and why they exist, or ask those questions. And Ryan, I guess, if you want to share a little bit about your equity or no equity part of your program.
I think Ryan's frozen.
He is.
He did freeze, but I work for Ryan and I can jump in for him while he's frozen.
I've been on a panel with you, Jason. You certainly
I
can.
know. Yeah. So I directly manage the
Yeah.
IgniteX program for Ryan. So I
Like,
don't know if we want to meet him.
it's an option. The first year when we did it, we made investments before working with them. Oh.
Okay, I'll go ahead.
There we go.
I'll say what I think he was going to say. So yes, we do offer an equity investment option to the startups, but it's optional for them if they want it. If it meets their strategic goals, we only invest $50,000, so it's not a huge check, and we make it as easy as possible. We don't ask for a lot of terms. We usually use whatever documents and agreements they're already using, or we'll use a pretty simplistic safe agreement or something similar. We'll either come in at the end of a round that they're already raising, or if they're doing a bridge round or some other fundraising, we'll come into that. So really it is case by case with each company, again, determined by if it looks like it. After working with them over the course of 12 weeks, we've got a pretty good idea of the company's runway and how they're looking and how they fit with our company. So that really gives us our due diligence in deciding whether we want to make these equity investments. And we usually, the goal is to make it at the end of the program once we've had a chance to really work with them and, kind of do the dating stage as it were. The first year equity investment was part of the program. It was done up front, and we've learned that necessarily isn't the best way to do it for us. So very small equity stake, not a major part of our program, and from a strategic perspective.
And then I guess I'll piggyback on that. I was talking about equity and not equity, but even though we have a corporate venture arm, one of the key things about the 35 Mules program is that I maintain and seek relationships with venture folks all over Florida, angel, all different stages. So when a company comes into our program, we really thrive and think we do best with strategic introductions. So I'm on the board of Florida Venture Forum. If you're looking for venture, I would highly encourage folks to, if you're a startup or you're adjacent to a startup or you're considering, you want to learn more about venture, Florida Venture Forum is a great organization that has early stage capital events. They have smaller events to get engaged with, and they've got a pretty robust website. So I'm on their board and executive board, which is helpful for me with relationships. And I also attend and support various partners in the ecosystem, whether that's other incubators. We know that even though 35 Mules is an incubator itself, startups don't start and stop with our program. They're on a journey. So we sponsor different ecosystem partners because we want to make sure that founders, even outside of our program, have access and have the ability to be successful, because our program is a very large commitment. So what I will tell you is, this might sound great to you, but if you're not willing to make the 15-month commitment and be in person 3 days a week, this is likely not the program for you. But there probably is a virtual or other program that can work for you. So really understanding, if you're a startup, the key differences in each program. If they're taking equity, what's the length of time in the commitment? Where are their strong suits? Making sure you're doing that research, and also looking to when they open applications, because a lot of people will also try to lobby me to get in our program. And I usually say, it's not a decision that I make. It goes through hundreds and hundreds of people at NextEra. Anyone that knows FPL knows it's definitely, this decision is not mine. I manage the decision once it is made. So definitely doing your research there. Is there anything else that, I don't know if Ryan's back on or not. Can you see him?
I don't, but I do see a question about nonprofits. Do you work with nonprofits?
Sure. So we are open to nonprofits. I think, again, it probably depends on, we don't say that we don't. We haven't had one make it into our program yet. So again, I don't know that that's probably our bread and butter. But again, I think if there is a specific nonprofit that has a vision that we think we can assist and help growing, and it's creating jobs and certain things that are a benefit to the state of Florida, it would likely be highly considered in our program. So again, we leave it kind of loose and then let the scoring. So for us, I guess I'll speak a little bit about how we go through scoring. So we have more of a simplified application. You put your name, your business, optional business plan, and different files and information. And then we actually have different subject matter experts internally review it. We have layers of leadership. We have a technical review. We have a cyber review. So we really have a very robust process. So it takes us about 3 or 4 months to just get to starting a cohort. So for example, we closed applications on St. Patrick's Day. I only know that because it was St. Patrick's Day, and we just started a cohort in October. So just so you know, and for the startups, sometimes when you apply, also understanding that when you apply versus what the start date is, keep that in mind when you're applying for the different programs.
Yeah, and from Black and
And
Veatch's perspective, and some of the questions look like they're specifically to us. For nonprofit orgs, again, I think going back to Danielle's point, really understanding what the accelerator incubators strategic mission is within their organization is important to know, because that will help you understand how you fit in as a startup or how our startup fit in. So again, we're looking at it more from a strategic perspective for our company and to be able to partner with these startups, whereas Danielle's looking at it from an economic development perspective in a location. And so although we do have, we are interested in the Midwest and the Kansas City area, that's not our complete focus right now, just based on how our company is structured globally and regionally. So although we haven't seen nonprofits even apply, I was trying to think, we haven't targeted any. I don't know if it would make sense for us, at least from the innovation part, but we do have a foundation that our company has that works with nonprofits. So as a corporate entity like ours, we've got different aspects that are looking at the world from different perspectives. And then
And I saw, oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah. So then the other thing about equity investments from Judy was we do not have a separate CVC arm. It's off the balance sheet within the IgniteX program. So after the companies go through, then Ryan and I manage the investment requests and work with our CFO and CEO to get final approval and do all the due diligence and make the investments. So we facilitate those.
And I will say, if a company has strategic fit with, for us, we do try to get companies pilots with NextEra Energy or FPL or our partners. It's just, you're not guaranteed a pilot, where sometimes it sounds like for your program, it's like they won't even make it in if there's not a strategic fit to a business unit at this point, right? They're solving a problem, where us, we're almost kind of working it backwards. We're like, this is great tech. And then we kind of shop it around and hope to, you know, if it makes sense to find that champion internally or just help them grow. So we do have a couple of our startups have pilot programs with NextEra Energy and FPL. So I just wanted to make it clear that it's not that it's off the table, but if the expectation for a startup is I'm in 35 Mules, I'm getting a pilot, that's absolutely not the case. You have to earn it like anybody else would. And if there is a value or a fit, we will absolutely work very hard to get you there. But just because you're inside these walls, I tell our startups, doesn't, you know, you get a little bit of help from us, but you're not guaranteed a contract because you're here. And we've got Ryan back, so it's very exciting. Let's see if your audio works.
It does. You know, I have a smart garage door opener, but for whatever reason, it like bombs my internet connection sometimes. So
the tech plays, they help one thing, they hurt another, right? That's a conversation for a different webinar.
thank you, Jason, for jumping in.
We went through kind of, what are some of the challenges that you faced with, you know, your corporate incubator, or what are some things, I guess, you know, challenges for you? And then what do you think? I kind of went through some of the considerations that startups should consider before applying for our program. What considerations should they take for yours? And then what challenges are you able to speak about just kind of running your program?
Yeah, I think it's in terms of considerations, that fit between our companies is really important. So like I said, we try to find something tangible to work on in the first 12 weeks, but that's meant to really be the start of a long-term relationship. And so I would say if you're a startup, go and look at what we do and try to understand how like Black and Veatch can be a part of, you know, getting you to where you want to go, and look at what our priorities are in terms of, you know, what's on our website. In terms of like climate tech, I mean, the great thing about climate is it's so diverse in terms of what are needed for solutions, and we have a small slice of what we focus on. So it's really important, I think, to identify, you know, what we do and how we can help and how you can help us. And then I actively also encourage people to reach out outside of our program and establish relationships with those parts of our business beforehand. You know, we're not like super strict about sort of things like that. It's like people who already have an understanding and have talked, and sometimes it's like a number of companies, we talk and we say, hey, you're probably about a year away from being ready for us, but let's keep talking and having a dialogue. So I think that talks about some of the challenges as well. I think one of the big things we've learned is like making sure from our side we can really provide the right resources and the right people. I know your innovation team up there at 35 Mules is small. I mean, I'm so lucky that Jason was on the call and Jason's there too, but our team is pretty small too. So we've learned, like, in terms of a long-term relationship, our innovation team really can't carry the ball. We got to have our business units champion it and carrying it forward, because we just don't have the bandwidth. We ended our program last Wednesday night, and it was like, all right, we need to start thinking about next year's program. So we want the previous cohort to be successful. That's really going to be carried by the champions going forward.
I think you touched on this already, but I want to make sure I am kind of scanning the chat, and I think we're probably about to get to kind of questions, but it sounds like you're open to partnership opportunities, whether or not it fits with your IgniteX program. It sounds like you're always kind of looking for strategic fits, even outside of your program fit. My team still takes meetings with startups, even if it's outside of our cohort application time. So we'll actively work to, if we can make a commercial introduction for a startup, I mean, it has to have a really strategic fit if it's outside of our program for us to do it, but we track those kind of commercial introductions for startups outside of our program. And also scanning to the chat, one of the questions said, would we expand our program outside of the corporate office or outside of the way you've done it now? I know for 35 Mules, we have the space at our corporate office because this is where a lot of our experts are. So the program as it is today, and with our in-person requirement, we will currently just continue to run it out of 35 Mules. I can't speak to the future if we'd ever do, shorter burst programs that are virtual. I'd certainly love to see our program goal, but I can't speak out of turn at this stage. We do not have any vision of growing 35 Mules outside of the current location that it's at. But what we do is we try to partner with the partners that have programs outside of our space to make sure that we're touching startups outside of our program and continue to grow them through other people's programs and supporting the other ways to get it done. Let's see. I think there was another question in the chat. What do you look for? What is success for you, Ryan, for your cohort members, or for a startup, or for your company with each cohort?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, the startup success in sort of being successful, like on the technical level, we try to, like I said, in that 12-week program, define some sort of success. Many times it might be there's a new technology to test, and so we might do pilots to see if they're ready. And I think it's one of the good things about the program is we're patient in terms of those kind of things. And people can, just to respond to your comment about can they approach us outside this program? Of course they can. What a lot of people with new companies, with startups and new technologies do is they don't know who to contact at a big company. And so we kind of serve as that front door. And I would say also, if you go to our supply chain people, procurement people, and you try to get in through that way, a lot of the basic minimum requirements, the financial backing, the things like that, it's very hard to do. So through our program, it's fine to go somewhere else, but we try to make it easy, and we're much more, I think we're much more understanding about what it means to be a startup and the patience, and not everything's going to work the first time. And so we want to work with startups to really help them evolve their solution. So that, I'm not sure what the question was, Daniel.
Well, I think you answered it. It was just really about, how do you measure success and
success.
But you kind of touched on how challenging it is to measure things. And I think I talked about earlier, this is for us early stage economic development. So what we do is we blend, we're a very metrics driven company, and this topic in this area is a little squishy. So we track how much money they raise during the time in our program. And why we do that is we write letters of support for venture, for grants. We actually have offered grant writing support. We have someone that presents on the different types of grants available. So that's why we kind of take credit while they're in our program. Not credit, but we count how much money is raised while in our program. We also track how many jobs they create. So that's more of a traditional economic development metrics is jobs. I mean, obviously it's not going to be quite as many jobs as as you have in a larger economic development project. We also track how many new clients and businesses they win, whether it's a result of our commercial introduction or not. You know, success for us has been, you know, we've really helped our startups. One of the startups last year, I think, raised over $10 million. As I mentioned earlier, we had a startup that we've been helping with grants just win a big grant with the VA. He's now since graduated our program. We also do surveys once a year with our previous cohort members to kind of track their progress. And I think earlier someone had asked, how do you stay in touch with your past companies? You know, kind of like, do we like say, nice to see you off to college? But we don't do that. So I'm on a bi-weekly call with one of our startups that's actively trying to move their manufacturing to Florida that's hinging on a pilot. We have a program, kind of not a program, but we encourage this group on a closed LinkedIn group called The Herd to do meetups. We also, like, I hosted our past cohorts as part of our welcome event, and we had folks fly in from all over the country to meet our new cohort. So we really try to kind of build what I would say as a former college athlete, like that team mentality that you're part of a bigger team, but maybe you're not on the starting roster anymore. So, you know, alumni, it's sort of, that's how we do continue to engage and help our companies. But I think that's why, you know, our team is, I only have 2 people on my team and I've been down a person for 6 months. So I'm happy going into the holidays to have a full team back, but 3 people and a statewide program doesn't leave a lot for us to kind of do these expansions. If the team ever grew, I think I could do a lot more, but currently, you know, we think we have the right staffing for the right program at the right time. But if anyone has any questions, I'll kind of scan the chat and see if we missed any.
Frank asked a question about challenging aspects of bringing on a new cohort and how we find the companies. Actually, that is a big challenge. I mean, I think you hit on one of the biggest ones, is how we get the word out about the programs, the recruitment process for us. I think we had something like 130 companies apply this year. Daniel, I was really impressed. You told me like over 200 companies apply. But it always seems like with us, it's like, you know, the week before we have like 5, right? So, and I get it, right? Like people wait and then they apply. And, but getting out and reaching the right people as well. We made a really conscious effort this last year to try to recruit more diverse and underrepresented and founders. I think diversity is very important for innovation. And that was a learning process for us, and we really want to double down this year is how do we reach startups wherever they're at, and the ones that might fit, and bring them onto the program. So that's a big challenge, I think, for us, that we're always put a lot of work into that and have a lot more work to do.
And I think for us, you know, we were thankful this time that we had so many applicants, but it was almost a challenge. Like our processes almost broke because we had we tripled our applicants from the last time. So assuming we grow applicants, you know, for us, kind of like Ryan said, you know, if you haven't seen 35 Mules logo somewhere, you probably haven't been in Florida. I've tried to sponsor everything. I've tried to be everywhere. The Edison Awards, you know, there's great companies through their program. So we've really tried to do very strategic with who we partner with in Florida to constantly drumbeat our program. And then we have an active kind of campaign time where we'll be more out there in the community. We also do a national LinkedIn campaign with certain, you know, keywords and certain things like that. So we have a full-blown marketing campaign, but a challenge for us is really everyone, maybe out of many people that apply, we actually had a few startups pass on our program because they're like, we can't do the in-person requirements. So again, I would say, just because it sounds great, ours is like, for our program, it's very specific. We offer, if someone doesn't work with our program, to send them to another program or to refer them to one that we think would be a better fit. And I think we've got a question from Judy. So Judy, have at it.
Yeah. Thank you, Danielle. Hi, Ryan. Hi, Jason. Nice to meet you. I'm Judy from Power Engineers. So I think there's a lot of the comments we'll share. And Ryan, I have a question for you. I know you have been touched on this, but I do want to ask specifically, what is the key strategy for you to ensure and motivate the champion from business unit, not only just passionate, but really let them commit to the program?
Yeah. I think if we have to convince them, that we're probably not working with the right champion. They need to be, a lot of people, I think, at big companies feel like there's an entrepreneur trapped inside of them. If they could, they would go out and start a startup. But, big companies, there's security, right, and things like that. So a lot of our, especially the technically minded people, the business minded leaders that we look for are very interested in this. And the other thing, so they had to have that personal passion and interest. And the other thing is, like, we want to make sure that they have a real pressing business need and problem they're trying to solve. It could be, for example, do a lot of work on solar. We build a lot of projects with FPL in Florida. And one of the early companies we have is a company called Built Robotics. They do automated construction with robotics. And so our construction technology team was looking for those sorts of solutions. And they, here's one we can work with, right? So kind of served it up on a platter. So solving that need. So that's a lesson learned, is you got to have the champions sort of bought into the concept from the outset and not try to convince them. And then we have repeat champions that come back as well and refer the program to other people. So that's great.
Thank you.
And
so
I know
much.
the question was not for me, but I will tell you that also leads into one of my biggest challenges is that, people are very busy. So getting someone to be a champion, especially when, we're not sourcing our startups to fit a business's strategic need or problem, but we're still asking them to give their time and their feedback to a company they don't know, that maybe, they're not ready to work with. So that's what my team does, is we host happy hour events, we have swag, we really try to get people excited about working with a startup, and then try to identify champions in each group. And one of the things we're considering rolling out, because my team is so small and we can't be everywhere, is an ambassador program. So having one champion in each group disseminate information, maybe having them plan the event within our space and how they'd like to engage instead of us trying to figure it out. So that's been a challenge for us, but it's also when it is successful, it's wonderful. And kind of like Ryan said, when I do have a champion, we tend to reuse the ones that are great.
Thanks so much. Yeah, this is really helpful.
We have about 7 minutes left. So if anybody else wants to jump in, you're welcome to ask some questions, or Ryan and Danielle, if there's any final thoughts you want to give.
I have a
Seeing if there's
question. This
anything
is
in the chat.
Lucienne.
Okay. Hey, Lucienne.
Hey, thank you for answering all those questions, both Danielle and Ryan. Very, very insightful and helpful information. One of the things that I'm thinking back on is, so if a corporation is looking to launch an incubator venture similar to either of yours, what was your experience pre-launch of the incubator? I think a lot of times people rush into good ideas without taking the time for planning. So I want to understand the planning phase of both 35 Mules and Ignite, if possible.
Yeah, I was involved from the outset in our program, so I can speak a little bit to that. And like I mentioned, we have multiple internal and external innovation programs. And we had we were at a point in the maturity of our internal innovation programs where we knew what we were doing. At least we thought we did. And actually our budget got cut. And it cost us a lot of money to fund internal innovation, because we're funding it 100%, right? And we had wanted to work with startups and we didn't know how. And actually the local economic development agency at Kansas City, an organization called Launch KC, had their own accelerator program, but they didn't have any corporate sponsors. And they fortuitously reached out to us about that time and said, hey, we really want corporates to be part of this program and have a corporate program, so we know that something's going to happen with the startups afterwards, that this isn't a flash in the pan. And we said, yeah, let's partner on it and adopt sort of their approach. And we kind of tuned it for our needs. And what we found on that just to get back, go full circle on the budget thing, was like, one of the advantages from our perspective is we're not putting all the capital into the startups, and we, very small amount of the capital, less than 1%, right? So it allowed us to see a lot more innovation, be exposed to it, and especially that external great thinking. We get great thinking inside, we do, but just, a broader perspective on the world and how to solve problems. So that was a great starting point.
And for us, I wasn't here when the program started, but I was on the other part of the team, the traditional economic development team. And I think what I can see now, and it can kind of reduce your challenges later, is understanding one, truly what your company's goals are with it. Because I think if you don't know your goals, then you're just going to be recruiting everybody and kind of struggling to make it happen. So, you know, as we've refined our fit a little bit, and more like, we didn't know that we were a 15-month program when we started. We're like, oh, we're open-ended. Well, now we're 15 months, right? We've learned a lot of lessons along the way. We've got to tell people when the program ends. So as much as you can figure out on the front end, also we've gone through different leadership changes at Florida Power and Light and Exeter Energy. So always aligning to the goal of the program each year with what your leaders have, and then having the infrastructure to actually run an incubator, whether that's people or how many do you want? How are you going to be reviewing these applicants? Are they going to be solving a problem that your company needs, or helping your customers engage, really just figuring out if yours is going to be project-based or demonstration-based, kind of more like Ryan's, like if there's opportunities for, let's say Babcock Ranch wants to really pilot new technologies, because you all are the leader in the world's first largest renewable energy community. Maybe you all can find a niche in the ecosystem that's not already there that would be special to you all. So kind of understanding where your fit is, your goals, and then making sure, as I've learned the hard way, the infrastructure can handle the influx if you actually end up doing this thing pretty well. How do you actually handle the inbounds? And then what do you do with it, and defining success before you start is some of the things that I think we've learned the hard way, but in a good way.
Thank you for that. Danielle, I do know how incredibly thorough FPL is. So it's very refreshing to hear you being very open about some of the challenges. And you're exactly right about your takeaway is really listening to a lot of what you and Ryan are saying about your drivers on, solving issues that are very core to your business model and that kind of thing. It's a very good point. Thank you.
Awesome.
There's one more question in the chat. Do you have a formalized process to give feedback to applicants that you don't accept?
Great question. I don't think we actually provide a lot of feedback. And I wish that we could have time to do more, but if you think about just the numbers, it's like 127, 125 companies that applied to our program that we weren't able to bring forward versus the 7 that we would. And something that happens is there's a lot of work, and I know same with you guys at Danielle, and just picking the companies, huge amount of work getting all the buy-in on that. And then once we pick them, it always seems to take longer. It's like we got to get in contact with the ones that we selected, and then there's the legal process and all that. And it's that part it's just this like freight train of unstoppable momentum. That said, if you've ever applied and you would like some feedback from us, reach out through the contact means we provide. I think it's like IgniteX@bb.com, and we'll see if we can do that. Otherwise, you're likely to get, Jason can check me on this, it's just a message that says, thank you for applying. Sorry you weren't selected. Try again next year. But feel free to reach out, and we'll see if we can give you some feedback.
Similar to you, I mean, we can't give everybody feedback, and quite frankly, how they get selected would be impossible to gather all the feedback because we aggregate so many scores. It's not like it's one thing. Now, I will say there is an executive kind of panel and pitch at the end, where a lot of those companies will ask for feedback and we'll give it to them. If a company asks, we will certainly do our best to give them feedback as we can. Again, if it's just aggregating scores, it's hard to give a feedback, but if it gets to that level that you're a finalist and you're pitching our top execs, oftentimes we give feedback. Our letter gives a lot of it, our declination letter, as you would call it, gives a lot of feedback saying, if you would like us to help you find another incubator, we offer to do things. We don't necessarily offer feedback, but we offer to help. And the startups that take us on those offers, we will, once we get through getting the new cohort in, be kind of funneling out and figuring out how to get those startups funneled to other folks within the ecosystem. And I guess one thing to even share with Lucienne, this is my first year going through contracts. Getting your contract down, your IP language is about as critical as anything else, because even if you can pick great startups, if they don't sign a contract, you don't have a startup and you don't have a program. So I kind of became a little bit of what I like to call a fake attorney. So all of my years of watching TV dramas did help me get through contracts. But definitely thinking about how loose you want your terms to be, because the harder the terms are, even if someone's interested, they won't really read about your program or the in-person thing until it's real and right in front of them. So Even if you get a lot of applicants, it doesn't mean anything if they don't jump in the program. So that was another big thing that we've worked with our IP attorneys and our contract attorneys to make sure that our general terms, this is a very different program than a typical FPL contract. So our terms, we try to build them to be, as favorable and coverage for both businesses, not just our own.
That's a really, really good point. I think as economic developers, we all play amateur attorney an awful lot because there are so much agreements before you actually get to anything. But do you use corporate counsel for that? Do you have separate outside counsel that is specific to startups?
We, we're very lucky as a Fortune 200 company to have quite a large staff of attorneys, but I have to give our hats off to our attorney team. We had a general contract attorney that is like one of our general contract attorneys. And then we have an inside counsel now, IP attorney, because what people don't know about NextEra, that would be a whole nother webinar, is that we've spun off so many businesses of our own. We have over 200 subsidiaries, FPL and NextEra Energy Resources perhaps, but we have so many new businesses within our organization that we actually do have not only an IP program for our employees to patent things. So we do have an on-staff IP attorney, but in the past, this is the first time we've kind of had that. Last year, we went to outside counsel for IP. Not last year, last cohort, sorry.
We're going to have to put a stop to the questions. So sorry, but we will send a recording of this, and then we'll send ways to get in touch with both 35 Mules and IgniteX in that recap email. It should come into your inboxes next week, so look for that. Thank you both so much for being here. You guys are awesome. Love hearing about it. I learned stuff too, so that's awesome. Any last thoughts that you want to share with the group?
Oh, thank you to the Edison Awards. It really is a community. We appreciate the partnership we have with you and Danielle. There is a circular thing here with what we're all trying to encourage. And yeah, we're going to launch a new call for applicants here. I don't know, first quarter next year or something like that, Jason. So look out for that. So thanks.
And for me, we just welcomed a cohort. So those are just getting really fired up and wanting to apply right now. I do apologize. We're in a new 15-month cycle, but I do anticipate we'll likely open applications towards the end of this year. And I would encourage you to follow 35 Mules on LinkedIn for the latest updates and sign up for our newsletter to kind of stay on alert of when we're recruiting. And again, thank you to the Edison Awards for being a wonderful partner. You've introduced me to Black & Veatch, which we already had a business relationship with, and to just bring in some great partners and a great organization for our startups to engage with. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye. Have a great day.
Take care.